Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to stop making assumptions that affect your relationship. And what we're going to cover in this video is some of the key assumptions fearful avoidants tend to make in relationships in general. And what we can do about this. And I really want to use some examples in here to illustrate the difference between what happens when we make an assumption and sort of act on that assumption versus if we realize that we have an assumption, we work to get to the bottom of it by opening a dialogue instead. And then we work towards a solution instead of just being against the problem we're facing as we make the assumption itself. So I'm really excited to be able to share this with you. So as you know, we tend to assume things based on our core wounds. And this is a filter, like it's a programmed component of the subconscious mind, and it's there to help us survive. So for example, like if you were walking through the forest and you saw a black bear and you remember the part of the forest you were at, you are likely, if you had to go walk through the forest the next day, you're likely to feel like, okay, that bear might be at that part of the forest again. And your mind's going to be like hanging on to the fact that that could happen. And you're probably going to feel unsafe and afraid going into the forest, as opposed to your mind making an assumption like, oh, well, I've been in many forests over the years and I saw a black bear in that forest yesterday. But there were many times I didn't see a black bear in the forest. So I'm going to assume there won't be a black bear there because there were more times that there weren't black bears in forests than that one time when there was. You're going to be on high alert naturally because literally your mind is designed to protect you and to keep you surviving. So it's going to hang on to these past wounds and experiences and pain points and imprints as a means to protect you, right? That's the intention that's sort of happening at a deeper level. So when we can become consciously aware of these imprints we tend to carry, these assumptions we tend to carry, and then realize like it's different, right? To go into the forest where there's a bear and it's like life or death potential situation versus to have thousands upon thousands of interactions over the course of our life. And if we're always assuming because this one thing happened way back here, that it's going to happen in all of our future relationships with all these different people, then we're likely to run into more trouble, right? We're likely to have more challenges that pop up in relationships more than that assumption is likely to benefit us. So what we can do is we can become consciously aware of these things, and then we can take a different path. And I want to give you an example of a client I worked with once who was fearful avoidant. She had this assumption. I think she was like 8 months or 9 months into her romantic relationship. And she was really getting strong feelings for the person that she was in a relationship with. And she made this assumption like, well, I've been really hurt when I've had strong feelings in the past. So she was unwilling to invest in being vulnerable. She's like, no, I don't want to, get too invested because I'm just going to get really hurt in the end. Because the last time I had strong feelings, that's what happened. And it's like the black bear thing. It's like, except assuming that instead of it being in the same forest, you assume that every time you leave your door or go out into nature at all, you're going to see a black bear, right? It's like, it would be debilitating to live like that. And so she was sort of doing this thing where it's like, she has this one painful experience and then assumes all people or all situations where she's going to have feelings involved are going to lead to the same outcomes. And she has this pain point or idea. And what the difference is between consciously being aware that this is an assumption and doing something healthy with it versus letting that assumption drive your behavior and feelings, they're very different paths. So the different path that we would want to take instead would be to communicate about what you could do to benefit the relationship instead. So if you have this assumption, you're like, I'm afraid of somebody getting bored and leaving, then what you would work towards instead would be, how do I stay connected in my relationships? How do I work towards maintaining closeness in relationships, keeping things interesting and exciting in relationships? And how do I express vulnerably that this is a concern so we can strategize as a couple to work beyond this and to ask for reassurance as well if needed? And so the one path, right? The one trajectory is like, you just are run by that assumption because it's subconscious. Your subconscious mind naturally projects it onto everything until you realize that it's happening. And you probably push people away. You don't invest. You miss out on good things in life, right? By pushing people away that you might have really been able to connect with. The other trajectory is you realize that this assumption exists and you take healthy, actionable steps to avoid that assumption from occurring by doing what you can to create closeness and connection and work on the relationship. And you also work to ask for reassurance and challenge that assumption that you're carrying so that you don't assume that all the time going forward. So here are some key things that you can do this with. And these are some assumptions that fearful avoidants tend to make that are very common and that you can become aware of. And then what I suggest you do with this is you strategize how to work through these assumptions. What action steps do you need to take? What communication do you need to have around the assumption? What need do you have to request? What conversations you have to have as a couple around these assumptions. And by the way, if you want to do a much deeper dive into all of this stuff in our fearful avoidant reprogramming course inside of the school, we go through all the major core wounds, assumptions, pain points, expectations. And we talk about how to reprogram, how to communicate, all these different things. So you can do a much deeper dive. You can check it out for free for 7 days by clicking the link in the description box below. It's called Healthy and Passionate Relationships After Emotional Pain. And then in brackets, it says Fearful Avoidant Reprogramming Course. And it's a really great place to get started. So some of the top assumptions fearful avoidants make are people will lose interest or get bored over time. My flaws will make me unlovable or unworthy. And so there's this, when that assumption runs a fearful avoidant, they feel like they always have to like earn their worth from people, like overcompensate for things, play it safe in relationships, not go after the people they're really interested in. Like a lot of these dynamics tend to be at play. I will get bored myself. That's a fearful avoidant assumption a lot of the time. Someone will cheat in the relationship. Betrayal is inevitable. Okay. And again, as I'm saying these things, like think of what behaviors follow these assumptions, right? It's like, then how do you end up behaving in relationships? You end up pushing people away, keeping people at arm's length, self-sabotaging, accusing, all kinds of stuff, right? Not investing, being afraid to invest, keeping your distance, all these sorts of things. The next assumption is people will leave. I have to be perfect to be loved. And I'm a very bad person if I make a mistake. And so try to notice, like when you carry some of these really common fearful avoidant assumptions, how does this affect your behavior? How do you show up? How much pressure do you put on yourself? How much do you allow yourself to invest and be open? How much do you pull away or accuse or become suspicious or afraid? How much stress does it put on you in your relationships? And what are healthier action steps you can take, right? How can you ask for more transparency in your relationships if you're afraid of betrayal? Can you ask for healthy strategies to stay connected if you're afraid people will lose interest? What steps can you take as a person to do something healthy with this assumption? And then what evidence do you have to really challenge some of these things that your subconscious mind is carrying so you can slowly end up working on reprogramming these things over time, using repetition and emotion to counteract them. And then by doing healthy things to meet your needs, to move around these assumptions as well. So hopefully this makes a whole lot of sense. If you want to do a way deeper dive, again, we've got tons of resources and tools inside of that course that I mentioned. You can check it out for free. You can go through the workbook, all that exciting stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed this and it makes sense. Thank you so much for watching. Please share, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I would really, really appreciate it. And I will see you in tomorrow's video.